Before we go over this trailer for season 3, and I catch you up because it's been a while, I first want to make 2 business observations about not just this show and superhero shows, but also Netflix's release strategy. So first off, it's been 2 years since the Umbrella Academy season 2, which is about the same time that it's been since The Boys season 2. And that's a long time. And not only is that a long time, I think partially, of course, due to the pandemic, but in that time span, as we discussed just the other day with The Boys, Disney Plus came on the scene in a major way, particularly with Marvel and Star Wars content. Before that, there were hardly any superhero shows. The Boys and Umbrella Academy were pretty much the only game in town. But now they have a lot of catching up to do, and I see significantly decreased interest in both the shows, which I find very shocking because they were both quite popular before they had to take very long breaks. Although it gives me faith that Invincible managed to find an audience, even though it went head-to-head with Falcon and Winter Soldier. But it didn't find that audience, as again we just discussed the other day, until it outlasted Falcon and Winter Soldier by a week, and then everybody discovered it. Now, that's because Invincible, just like The Boys and all Amazon shows, is a weekly release. They start with 3 episodes and then they go weekly. And Disney Plus, of course, does a weekly release. But Netflix made its name giving you a lot to watch in one weekend. Your whole weekend, or your whole day in some cases, was a new show. And that's worked very well for them. But I think it's starting to really hurt them. Not only, before we talked about being a part of the conversation, keeping the conversation going. But now, and it's hard because if you don't watch it right away, you feel like you've missed it. So that's a bit of a problem, I think, particularly for talky shows. Like Ozark, you can watch it when you want. But, it's harder to keep up. Then the new problem I'm realizing is churn. How do you keep people from churning, right? Because they only need to be subscribed to your service for a few days. And maybe they can just let a couple of series stack up before they return. Because, you pay for a month at a time. Now, with the weekly release model, you got to stay. You got to stick around. But I think that's another problem that Netflix has. Because, you would think that why would you waste Umbrella Academy smack in between the 2 chapters of Stranger Things 4? Right? Coming out May 27th and July 1st. This is June 22nd. That's just I think a week or 2 weeks right before the second half of Stranger Things Part 2. And the reason that Netflix has to do that is because they do the binge model. So just like they swore they'd never do an ad version of Netflix, and of course one's coming out now, I suspect that if not this year, next year, but I think soon, they'll have to switch to the weekly model. I think they're going to have to do it. And I think it would be okay because there's so much content now that it would enable more people to stay and keep up with all the shows. But it's fascinating. It's very interesting. I mean, I know some of you swore that you would be furious if they would get rid of the binge model. But how do you feel now when your plate's already your cup overfloweth and your plate is so full? All right, let's break this down. It's really past the comics in large part at this point, but I do also have some observations, some story observations, which I think are pretty interesting already. All right, here we go. So, of course, this is how we ended last season, with Sir Reginald Hargreaves, their papa, saying, "What? This is the Sparrow Academy, bitch." Now, we'll talk about sparrows. Is the name of the academy. But you'll notice, you'll be like, wait a minute, isn't the symbol of season 3 a crow? That's because Faye on the left there has her superpowers is a murder of crows. She basically throws you into the movie The Birds. So I don't know why they're not called the Crow Academy. I guess the Sparrow Academy sounds better. But I'm like, what kind of bird are we going with here, man? Make up your mind. So there they are. We'll go over, well, I guess I could do it right now. All right, so that's the cube Christopher there on the left. That's Faye with the sparrow powers. That's Jamie. We don't really know what her power set is just quite yet, nor Sloane next to her. That's Genesis Rodriguez, by the way, the biggest name joining the cast. Then that's Alfonso. He has the ability to hurt others by hurting himself. He's like a voodoo doll. Although he doesn't seem to be using those powers in this trailer, so we'll discuss that. But that's something from the comics, and that's the guess that that's what his power set is. And then over there, that's Marcus, who's super strong. He's the Luther of the group, and they're number one. Now we'll talk about Ben's place in the order of things when we get to Ben. All right. So they're like, oh yeah, there's Ben. Okay, so they're like, what? He's alive? Because of course he's dead from the timeline that they come from. They've jumped into a different timeline where Sir Reginald Hargreaves selected different babies and Ben to be his Sparrow Academy. So there's Ben, and in this lineup, he's number 2. In the original lineup, he's number 6. And of course, in the original lineup, number 1 and number 2, Luther and Diego are sparring for who should really be the leader. You know, Luther has the job, but Diego thinks it should be him. And that same dynamic is transferred to this alternate timeline, but now it's between Marcus and Ben. And I think that's fascinating, that their place in the hierarchy speaks to their personalities. So I guess you'd have to think, are there other similarities, right, on that note, between other 3s, other 4s, and other 5s, and et cetera. Like, for instance, Klaus is number 4. So with their number 4 is Alfonso. Is Alfonso like Klaus? That doesn't seem right, but it's interesting. We'll see if that's what they explore. All right. So they're like, what? All right, so now there's crows, not sparrows. Come on, man. What kind of... The Sparrow Academy is bad branding. So they're like, we jumped into a different timeline, and of course we've created, he calls it some crazy cuckoo name, but we read comics, we know what this means. There's a problem, and because they've caused this ripple effect, eventually this timeline and the universe will be destroyed. If they don't fix it in, we find out, 4 to 5 days. So that's this timeline for the show, for the season 3. They have 4 to 5 days to fix this. 4 to 5, not 45. So I like this. There's 5 in normal clothing instead of his usual, schoolboy uniform. And I do love the fact, they highlight the fact that he's an older guy and a younger a teenager's at this point's body, right? I think that's very clever. Not only do you see his fashion choices here, but I thought the really touching conversation he had with his, father, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, last season, because they're actually very similar in age at this point, and I thought that camaraderie was really nice. All right. So I think that's Hotel Oblivion, but it's not called Hotel Oblivion here. Now, I think there's a combination of, they're trying to make you feel that that's like this weird event, but I also think it has the power signature of Vanya/Viktor. Ellen Page's character is going to, a transition during the course of the show, just as Elliot Page has in real life. So you'll see that. So I like this. This bag of blood explodes, but before it does, you can see it's B positive. Haha, hilarious. B positive, everybody. So that looks like her blue power signature. But those are ghosts. Those are Klaus's ghosts. But, what did he expect? He's in a graveyard, as you can see. That's great. Now look at this. So this is the fight. And you can see that that's Klaus with his crazy hat there being in Ben's tentacle. And Diego flips down in their mid-fight. Yeah, let's take on, sparrows versus umbrellas. Hilarious. So there you can see, there's Faye right out of the comic with her murder of crows. A group of crows is called a murder, which is very cool. So they're like, not birds, just, Peter won't let us fight back. All right. So they're like, and I like that Klaus is like, can everyone see Ben? Because of course he's been able to see Ben the whole time because he can see the dead. But now everyone can see him. And they have really great banter here, very much like siblings, talking about how everyone's a jerk. Now see why? So here you can see they're like, yeah, they can fight too. They're jerks, but they're also very good fighters. And we have another convenience store fight. Reminds me of Loki when they were at that Roxanne Mart. So that's Alfonso taking on Diego. I have a commentary about their fight a little bit later. So there's Hargreaves watching the whole thing. Well, come on, Dad. But yeah, so I think that's very cool. That's Luther versus Marcus, and they seem very evenly matched. Although it doesn't look like Marcus has, the ape part of his upper body that Luther, of course, has. He seems to not have that affliction, which of course has haunted Luther and kept him and Allison from having a relationship because he has low self-esteem. So look, but Marcus delivers the knockout blow. So is he superior? So he says, next person to say that, and they all say it, of course. It's very funny. So you can see there, that's Vanya will transition to Viktor. So there's Viktor there. Now that looks like, doesn't that look like, Vanya Viktor's powers, right? Now look at that. So that's that coming from the basement of the Sparrow Academy. It looks a little bit more like X-Men there or Avengers Campus. They have better branding, right? They have their posters on the side of the building. I think that's nice. They're like, come and get us, enemies. What's that? We are the solution up there. Oh, is that crime's the problem? We are the solution. Maybe they have a pretty good marketing campaign. I don't understand why they don't get the sparrows versus the crows right. All right. Now look, that poor doggy at the hotel gets blown away. Who's doing that? All right. They make you think it's the incursion, which we also just had over in Marvel. But that's what makes it seem like it's going on. So look, Diego found the other Lila, who here is blonde. I love Lila. I'm so glad she's back. Of course, she turned on them, being the handler's, adopted daughter, although under nefarious circumstances, Lila found out. But she turned on them at the end of season 2, and she's like Rogue. She can mimic anyone's powers. But maybe they'll. Speaking of romance, maybe they'll finally get together. So the very formidable group. So here, this is still Vanya. Vanya's talking to Marcus, and she's like, "You're good. Your group's good." They're in a very nice diner, and she's like, "But you're not as good as me, because I've almost destroyed everything twice." She's like, "I'm not only very powerful, but I don't have that much control over my powers, so don't make me mad." I love the VFX on these powers. They're incredible. So I think maybe she stops the fight. And Marcus is like, "Yeah, we don't have one of you." So there, in the comics, it's Hotel Oblivion, which is a prison/rehab center in an alternate dimension, which, once you check in, you can't leave unless you've become a better person. This is Hotel Obsidian, which seems to be their new base of operations, because of course they can't be at Sir Reginald Hargreaves' home, because that was never their home in this dimension, or this timeline. So he says, just because Reginald Hargreaves didn't adopt us doesn't mean we don't exist in this timeline. Oh, are we going to meet the alternate versions of themselves? The variants? Man, this is now you know what it's like to read comics. There's only so many types of stories, so there's often similarities. So maybe they'll meet their variants during season 3, and he's like, if you meet your variant, and they interrupt him, and Diego says, kill them. And then Klaus says, sleep with them. And Five's like, no, avoid them. And I like Luther's like, what's wrong with you two? And I love Klaus's line. It's like, you never wanted to climb Luther Mountain. That's so funny. That's hilarious. I absolutely love it. It's so Klaus and so charming. I thought that was hilarious. And see, Luther, you should have better self-esteem. All right. So there they are in their X-Men type uniforms. That's hilarious. And you wouldn't like Cube when he's angry. So Cube, aka Christopher, is using his powers on the other group. And his powers are he can either make the room very cold or induce fear. Looks like he's using the fear option right now. Oh, they're at the hotel. It says Monday, and then it says Hotel Obsidian. What is it? Hotel Obsidian? Yeah, Obsidian. All right, so I'm glad the hotel has events. That's very nice. All right, so then here's Diego fighting Alfonso again, and I wonder if when he kicks Alfonso in the face, does he feel it? Right, and that's why Alfonso is so injured, because he's done things to himself to hurt his enemies, which is also very interesting, to be a living voodoo doll. That's funny. You'd think he'd really be into peace and love if that were the case. All right, so here we have a training montage. Reminds me of The Matrix. Then we got a lot of dancing. Everybody's dancing. Although here it looks like they're controlling Diego. And I'm not sure whose powers would do that, although we don't know everybody's power set. So they're making him dance. How cruel, involuntary dancing. And they're like, if we kill you, do we get our Ben back? And this Ben does not take too kindly to that threat. So it says, not enough time, too many siblings. And again, as I said in my trailer reaction, I wouldn't be surprised if they all became pals by the end, because they got to work together, I'm sure, to save everybody. So look, that's that same power, and it makes a bunch of cows explode. So they're in the hotel. I wonder who that new character is. And this person doesn't take 5 very seriously. That's Jamie. And number 5's like, you should. Now look, I love the idea of Layla syncing up with Viktor here to use that power set. And I think it might be like a dyad, with Star Wars, where it becomes even more powerful. Because you see them do it again, I believe, in another shot here. But that's incredible. And look, so that explodes from wherever they are. That's from the Sparrow Academy. So, and then look, at first I was like, none with a flamethrower. But that's Grace. That's their mother, their cyber mother, who here for some reason is, in this dimension, is a nun caretaker, nun nanny, rather than their mother. So Diego will be like, mother? So look, see, I believe, is that Viktor and Lila syncing again to do that? Very curious to see what happens when they use that power in tandem. So, season 3. Too late? I hope not. I'm excited. And then, I thought I'd find you. And because, of course, it's an alternate timeline, Pogo's still alive and has taken on a very different career path. I wonder if they'll still have the same voice. He should. And the spoilers, hilarious. And there it is. Wasted in a single weekend on June 22nd. But these shows also, do they lend themselves to weekly coverage? I don't know if they would. This could be a little bit like Doom Patrol, which drops weekly on HBO Max, but doesn't garner enough attention to warrant weekly coverage. The Boys does. I didn't cover it last 2 years ago weekly, but I saw that there was an interest in it. So I'll be, because Invincible. And the same case with Invincible. So I'll be covering The Boys weekly. But I don't know if I would cover Stranger Things weekly, but I don't know if I would cover Umbrella Academy weekly, because it's just not that type of show. So it's an interesting situation. But I think it should still, from my perspective, I'm content for it to binge. But from a business perspective, from the streaming services perspective, it should be weekly. But what do you think? And what do you think of the trailer? Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.